Welcome to episode 68 of the Talking Friars podcast. Ben Fadden here. Haven't talked in a while. Kind of stopped a little bit just to kind of relax a little bit, watch some playoff baseball. But we're back because there's been some manager news. San Diego Padres, obviously, they fired Jace Tingler at the end of the season. It took a few days, but they ended up parting ways with him. Preller had to do that because Tingler had lost the clubhouse. In the search for the new manager, the big theme that, the only thing you see around the internet is, they want experience. And I totally agree with that. But it also has to be someone that's not only has experience winning, but I think has to be someone that has experience with players loving them and players, really, really getting behind the manager and buying into the message. Because it's one thing for you to kind of be like a Bill Belichick-ish, type coach where you're winning, right? You have this hard-nosed, personality, like work. But I think some of those Patriots players maybe didn't fully buy into that message, or they didn't really like Belichick, but they were winning, so it didn't really matter. I think the Padres want to find a blend in winning and, being a player's manager. And I think there's a few prime candidates that are perfect for that. And so let's get right into that. Actually, first, before we get into that, Fernando Tatis Jr., it was revealed yesterday by Kevin Acee that he would forego shoulder surgery, so he would not have the left shoulder surgery. That decision had to come, pretty much now, because if he was going to get the surgery, he needed to be ready for spring training. So he decides not to have it. I wrote on gasnetball.com. You can read that. I wrote yesterday that Tatis should have opted for the surgery. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to tell him what he should be doing with, his body in regards to his shoulder and all that stuff. But I think that it would have been smarter for him to have the surgery. I've done a little bit of research online, what that surgery is, what it will help in the future. And from what I've read, if he had that shoulder surgery to kind of stabilize that left shoulder that he dislocated or had subluxations of multiple times this year, that surgery would have helped stabilize the shoulder more than just the strengthening exercises supposedly that he's doing right now. And it usually helps prevent future subluxations. And these subluxations have put Tatis on the IL for, 10 days, stuff like that. He missed like 22 games because of that this year. And the Padres ended up sucking at the end of the year, so that ended up not mattering. But next year, when it seems like they're going to get all these guys back and you would think that they're not going to be that bad again, Tatis missing 20, 30 games due to these subluxations that keep popping up, because he's going to be at shortstop all year next year. Let's remember that. He's not going to be in the outfield. If he has these subluxations, that could lead to missed time, and that missed time, he's the best player on the Padres. So the chances of them winning if he has missed time next year go down significantly. And that could cost them the division, which we saw was obviously big, for the Giants winning the division, because they had home field advantage against the Dodgers in the wild card. They didn't have to use an ace, in that wild card game. There's so many advantages that come with winning the division. And with Tatis out, it's going to be hard to do that. And the bottom line is he wants to win. And for him to, have the surgery, it would increase his chances of staying on the field. And when he stays on the field, it gives the Padres a better chance of winning. It's as simple as that. So hopefully you just got to hope for the best, that he doesn't, he alters his playing style a little bit. I think if he had the shoulder surgery, he wouldn't have to alter this playing style. I'm not saying that the surgery would totally have prevented a subluxation because of the nature of the way he plays. But I think the surgery obviously would have definitely lessened the chance, or at least the severity, of his pain and the time it takes to recover if he, dislocates that shoulder. So that's Tatis. That's my opinion on that. Now to the managers. Update for the Padres. Again, it looks like they're looking for, experience. But like I mentioned, I think there needs to be an important blend to that experience. It's not just, if someone's experienced, like I've heard, Jeff Bannister is a name that's come up. Like, does he really have experience of winning? Not really. And so my dream scenario is Bruce Bochy. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm not even putting that really in my mind. Buck Showalter and Ron Washington are the two guys that I would go after really hard. Aaron Boone is now with the Yankees. He had a 3-year deal with the club option, so he's signed there through 2024. I kind of like that move if he was available. A manager these days doesn't, let's be honest, they don't have as much authority as the Joe Torres and Tony La Russa's had, decades ago, making moves. It's a lot of pre-made, pre-thought out analytical moves made by the front office and a collaborative effort with the GM, the front office, the manager, the coaching staff, hours before first pitch. So Aaron Boone, I thought would have been a pretty good fit because he's a player's coach. The players like him. He has a broadcasting background, so he speaks with the media very well, and much better than Tingler. He's not just going to say, we're battling after every game when, you're losing like over like 75% of your games. He's not going to say that. So I thought, that's a big part of the manager, speaking to the media, having good relationships with the players, having players buy into your message. And, from the quotes that we've heard from the Yankees players, Aaron Judge, guys like that, they like Aaron Boone. So I thought he would have been a good fit, but that's out the window. Now, Buck Showalter and Ron Washington are two guys that I think are fits. I'll say my three because, again, I'm not going to consider Bruce Bochy, but Ron Washington, Buck Showalter, and then Mike Schilt. Mike Schilt was fired from St. Louis. We'll get into him based on a recent Kevin Acee report. But as for Ron Washington, actually, hang on. Let's go to Showalter first because Washington and Schilt are kind of interrelated. But Buck Showalter first. Watching him on MLB Network, I definitely love the personality. Seems like he's adapted a little bit, how he was portrayed in the public in the dugout. He's kind of like this, serious, uptight guy, talking to the media and all that. And with MLB Network, it seems like his personality is definitely brightened up. Maybe that was the case behind the scenes anyway, but it seems like he's definitely would be a player's manager. He has relationship with some of the Orioles, former Orioles coaches that were on his coaching staffs. I think Wayne Kirby might be back. He was with Baltimore. And then obviously the Manny Machado connection is huge. Manny Machado, franchise cornerstone. He's going to be here hopefully for a while. Hopefully he'll want to finish out the contract here. And they had a good relationship. Showalter was able to guide Manny through his, first rookie contract in the big leagues where Manny made some kind of unwise decisions. He wasn't the smartest guy. He kind of, JJ Hardy kind of helped Manny with that process and took him under his wing. And Buck was a big, helper in developing Manny. And I think Manny has an appreciation for that. And I think Manny will definitely help guide players and, put into players' minds that, Buck Showalter's the right guy. I think Showalter would gain instant credibility in the locker room. And I would be all for Showalter managing the Padres. He went on Ben and Woods and said that the Padres, it's just kind of an honor just to be considered for any managing jobs. I don't think the Padres ever reached out to him yet, but that's one thing to keep an eye on. I think they definitely should be talking to him. Another guy they should be talking to that obviously I guess they haven't they plan to interview Mike Schilt, former manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. Surprisingly, he was fired over philosophical differences that turned to the direction of the franchise. John Mozeliak in the front office with the Cardinals thought it should be going one way. Schilt thought the other way. It seemed like his coaching staff was kind of more in sync with the front office, and that's why it seems like they're going to be staying while Schilt's not. Schilt is definitely a guy that they need to speak to. I wrote about this on GasLandBall.com as well. He's a guy they need to speak to. Paul Goldschmidt, has been raving about him. He raved about him earlier this year with The Athletic in an article there, talking about how he didn't really change the lineup up a whole lot. He, kept it simple and, he kept believing in the players. And even when the team was struggling, and that was kind of hard to do, but he did that. And that's kind of the opposite, it seems like, of what Jace Tingler did. I know Jace Tingler with, the analytical stuff these days, he's not making the lineup himself, fully, but regardless, there was a lot of changes. It felt like a new lineup every day, and it wasn't consistent because the team was struggling. But it seemed like with St. Louis, even when they were struggling, the lineup was pretty still consistent. So I think that's very welcoming. I think that that's something that the Padres need to consider, especially when they have that much talent. Especially next year, I just don't see that this talent not producing offensively again. So I think Schilt, he has a winning record. He fills the boxes. I think Showalter, Washington, and Schilt fill the boxes. There's a few main boxes. Being able to be a player's coach, speaking with the media, and a track record of winning. Those are the boxes, and they check them all. Especially Schilt. He took over as the interim behind Mike Matheny, and then every year that he was the manager full time, he made the playoffs. He was 4 wins away from the World Series in 2019 against the Nationals. He was a couple plays away from beating the World Series champion Dodgers this year in the wild card game, losing on a walk-off, that Chris Taylor walk-off. I mean, he would there's no doubt that he would definitely elevate the Padres, and the Cardinals on paper going into the year were not as talented as the Padres. You give Mike Schilt that talent, I think that you're going to see good things happen. Track record of winning, players coach, and I think it's good to be a little bit of a different breed. I think Showalter, Washington, and Schilt all have that. And it's kind of like I'll be okay with any of those 3 guys because they're kind of that older mindset. They'll use the analytics pregame, but then they'll manage from their gut. It's not just going to be numbers, thrown at them like it felt like the Padres were dealing with. It was, and with all the lineup changes and all that, it's a lot of managing. It feels like with the gut and old school personality and working at their craft. That's what it feels like, and really relationship driven. And I like that. The only thing with Schilt is that maybe Preller won't be in sync with him because Preller is with the analytics, and he obviously wants to be like that. But at the same time, like I mentioned, Washington and Showalter or any of these older experienced managers, they're probably not all in on the analytics. It seems like that Jay Stingler was. So it's not like that would take Schilt out of the running. But I'm a big fan of Schilt, big fan of Showalter. But one problem I had, Kevin Acee reported this a day ago. He said that there are no plans to interview Ron Washington. And that is a stupid decision if that's the case. I totally don't believe that report. Usually I believe most of the stuff that's coming out of Acee, but I don't believe this. No plans to interview Ron Washington. No plans to interview the guy that finished second in the manager hunt, the guy that's absolutely loved by every player he coaches, the guy that the Braves infield, Austin Riley and Ozzie Albies, like Freddie Freeman and Dansby Swanson, who have developed into great defensive players because of Ron Washington, taking them out for grounders pregame every single day. The guy that, seems like always has a smile on his face, the guy that took the Rangers to consecutive World Series appearances, and the guy that, has mentioned that he wants to be the manager of the Padres and believes that he can be the guy to take the team over the hump. And, the guy that Preller is familiar with in Texas, like that would be just a stupid decision. Like this is a guy that would be a total step up from Tingler, obviously. And you don't hear anything bad about the guy. He is a player's coach. I keep saying that, has experience of winning, can speak with the media. He obviously has years of experience with that, with the Rangers as the manager. He's aggressive. I know he's not going to be the third base coach, but we've seen some of the aggressive sends that are reasons that why the Braves were able to win these games against the Dodgers here to take an early lead in the National League Championship Series. If they don't send those guys, maybe they don't score runs in that inning, and then they end up losing by 1 or 2 runs because they've been walk-offs. I just think it would be a dumb decision to not even talk to Ron Washington, who obviously left some sort of impression on you because he finished second in the manager, hunt that Jay Stingler ended up winning, and to be honest, I think Preller wanted Tingler all along. So who knows what that second place really even means as the runner up. But I think that the ownership may have been wanting Warren Washington a little bit more than they wanted Tingler, but Preller wanted Tingler. And so ownership was like, okay, you better be right on this guy or you're going to have to go experience next time. So maybe that's the time. But to not even talk to Ron Washington, I think that's going to change. Maybe they don't have plans to speak with him right now because the team's in the playoffs. But come on, to not even interview the guy, he's has to be at the top of the near the top of the list of interview candidates. At least if I was the GM, there's no doubt about it. He literally wants to manage his team. He thinks he can put him over the hump. Guys, players that he's played under, or the players that he's coached under, rather love the guy. I just don't understand why you wouldn't even talk to the guy. It's not like you're saying we're going to hire him. No, it's just not even to interview him. It just doesn't make sense. So my three guys, again, I'm not even considering Bochy because he's retired. Showalter, not in any order. If I had to go order, probably Ron Washington 1, Showalter and Schilt. But again, it's like neck and neck. So Showalter, Schilt, and Washington are my three that I would be really happy with having. But for some reason, I just feel like Preller's going to come up with someone not in those three, not in that list, not Bochy, not any of those guys. And that kind of concerns me. But I guess I have to keep wearing my Impreller We Trust shirt and just hope that that Seidler, and Ron Fowler and all those, the front office and everyone is in Preller's ear and says, you already screwed up the first two. Don't kind of go with the safe hire because you have the talent. You have the talent, the good enough talent. The last thing you need is for the clubhouse to continue to not trust you. So that would be my message. That's the update. Stay tuned to gaslightball.com for the articles I write there about the manager search, about the offseason. We'll be coming to you with some more interviews. But this has been episode 68. Ben Fadden here. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned to all the social channels, again, for all the manager updates. Hope you're enjoying the postseason. Hopefully the Braves can knock out the Dodgers here, advance to the World Series. Till next time, though, let's go Padres.